audience what their overall reaction to key cards are, and if they consider it the same value level as regular physical media, and things like if they would even consider picking up a game key card period or not. Well, there's been all this talk on the internet about if a game is on a cartridge, physical collectors will get it and add it into their collection, and if not, they are not going to be picking up something that is a game key card only release. I myself have been sticking to this same idea outside of I will buy some of the key card releases as digital releases. I will not pick up a key card myself for my own collection personally. I just don't see the same value level. But now we have data that is actually backing up the buying trend, potentially really signifying that the game key card concept is maybe working, because alongside of these surveys that we referenced and some of the lower than expected sales projections that other companies have reported, we now have some data that companies that chose to actually do the on cartridge experience are seeing a tremendous amount of their sales come from that physical media option. And that's what I want to break down and unpack today and discuss whether or not there's any chance that mid-generation we actually see a little bit of a shift away from this key card situation that Nintendo finds themselves in with the Switch 2 right now. So we'll get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we're going to first kick this off over at VGC, where you might remember one article we referenced around.
All right.
We'll go eat at Wendy's.
You go to Jet Room after.
What do I get?
I always get the stuff for
Oh,
you.
that's all right. Think about what I'm going to get, and then I'll take it.
All right.
The launch window of Nintendo Switch 2 suggests that a lot of third parties are not necessarily happy with the sales performance of their games on Switch 2, which ties into the next data point that we are going to read through after this. To first remind you, third-party Switch 2 game sales started off slow, with one publisher selling below our lowest estimates. Cyberpunk 2077 has enjoyed some success on Switch 2.
BLS.
And we have, while Nintendo Switch 2 hardware has enjoyed record-breaking launch sales, some third-party publishers have reportedly found that the console's success hasn't translated to a thriving third-party market yet. In the new report from the games business, it's claimed that other than CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077, most third-party games have struggled to sell on Switch 2. Most third-party Switch 2 games posted very low numbers, the report reads. One third-party publisher characterized the numbers as below our lowest estimates, despite strong hardware sales. According to the report, 62% of Switch 2 sales during the console's launch week came from first-party titles. This excludes Mario Kart World Bundle, which accounted for the vast majority of console sales in the region. Okay, with that in mind, we have a third-party game situation where, yes, there were a lot of different games available at launch on Nintendo Switch 2, many of them third-party, and many of them not hitting even the lowest sales projections and expectations from those development studios. Okay.
This is about to be the most profitable
Case Connect, a revolutionary new AI database, allows accident victims to see exactly how much they're owed.
This is Case Connect AI, a real tool built using a database of over 50,000 successful personal injury claims.
With that in mind, we had the previous report that Cyberpunk 2077 was doing good. It's also one of the few games that was third party that launched on a cartridge, a true cartridge that is not a game key card. And now you have this headline from recent financial findings at CD Projekt Red due to one of their briefings. 75% of Cyberpunk 2077's Nintendo Switch 2 sales were physical. Cyberpunk was one of the Switch 2's most high-profile launch games and released entirely on cartridge. And you have here, I will take off my camera just so you can see their graph. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition on Nintendo Switch 2, copies sold in June 2025, and the channel split is dramatic. 24.6 of their sales came from digital. The entire rest of the sell-through rate of 75.4% came from those physical copies on the cartridge. So the sales split was revealed during the company's latest financial results on Thursday, in which it said 24.6% of the Switch 2 game sales were digital compared to 75.4% physical. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition alongside the Switch 2 hardware in June. Those sales numbers have not been released. It's the best-selling third-party game on the Switch 2 so far, according to
Get the win.
data.
All
One
right.
of the core aspects of our strategy is the ability to offer products to a broad audience while retaining quality.
What's up, Colin?
Said CD Projekt Red joined CEO Michael Nowowski. For that reason, we're particularly glad that Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition was released on Nintendo Switch 2 on the days of its global launch, and it continues to rank amongst the best selling third-party titles on that platform. Okay, we have some more data we're going to dive into, but I want to take a second on Cyberpunk 2077 because while you might just say that this is one of those games that so many Switch 2 fans just couldn't wait to play, and it was the go-to choice for a system seller at launch, like, there's maybe some idea around that, but whenever you think about the split of 75% physically purchased Cyberpunk 2077 compared to 24% of the digital purchases, I think that there was something of a choice going on in a lot, at least of the core consumers, because the day one buyers of Nintendo Switch 2 is their hardest core base that they have. They're people who keep up with the Nintendo news cycle. They knew about the console's launch date ahead of schedule. They lined up at Best Buy's, GameStops, and retailers all around the world to get one day one. They're very informed with what they're getting, and there was all of that talk around the game key card leading into it, and I would not be surprised if many people at the point of checkout and the register decided to go with a physical copy of Cyberpunk 2077 because
What's up,
they
Dr.
were getting
Butts?
the full-on cartridge experience and not something right next to it that clearly states game key card, and you know that you are getting something that is essentially just a digital download in a box that's tied to a cartridge that you can resell, but it's not really that traditional collector's item that a lot of hardcore physical media collectors like to stick to. You also have to realize that Nintendo, out of all of the other platform holders, probably have more of that lifelong collector chunk of the audience. In fact, I will say I've collected more things for Nintendo in the Switch generation than my PS5, and Switch came out in 2017, PS5 came out in 2020. I had both of them at launch. I myself found on Sony's console, eventually I just started to pick up more things digitally. The big, very important franchises to me, I would still pick up a physical copy, but it does start to feel like we are maybe in the last generation of physical media for PlayStation consoles, period, and then that disc drive is going to always be sold separately, and that's while they keep it around. And at one generation, I see Sony just pulling the plug and saying the disc drive is only compatible with old games and not their new PlayStation 6 or 7 games or whenever that happens. And so my mindset slowly has kind of gone away from being a hardcore physical collector for my PlayStation library. However,
Whether in sickness or in health, IEHP is there for you with a team of specialists connecting you to the care you need.
I'll be right here.
As soon as you need it, making sure you have the treatments and prescriptions you need to give you hope and a chance to heal.
Well, she's doing great.
I'm gonna check on you later, okay?
Because care that's there for you is care you can feel. Inland Empire Health. Care you can feel.
my Nintendo library of games, because of the Switch support with on-cartridge experiences and everything from small games and big games that got released physically, they were all on the cartridge. I did go out of my way to pick that up, if at all possible, in the Nintendo Switch generation. And I wonder if we are seeing that same mindset of consumer also kind of grab Cyberpunk 2077 because it was one of those complete on-cartridge third-party games. Meanwhile, you have other third-party companies reporting quite the opposite, that they are seeing less than expected sales numbers on their release of games, and they opted for those key cards that are no doubt cheaper. And listen, part of this is definitely on Nintendo because they need to have multiple cartridge size options. There are select Nintendo Switch 1 and 2 games where you can buy the Switch 1 version and get it complete on cartridge because the game probably is only 4 or 6 gigabytes and it fits on an 8 gigabyte cartridge for the Switch 1, and that's a lot cheaper for developers and publishers to purchase. So that's the route that they actually go. And that same game, potentially with its Switch 2 version, only has a key card available because that same developer and publisher could not bring themselves
What's up, holy long nuts?
at a $15 or $16 loss to go with the 64 gigabyte cartridge, with that being the only size option. So that's kind of where Nintendo comes into this with their own survey. And, you know, I will quickly remind you guys of that, where you have over at Nintendo.
It's going good, man.
Second game key card and physical game survey, and they were asking direct questions around what consumers are willing to pick up as far as their media options, and if a physical game that is on cartridge is actually more valuable to them than something like a game key card where it's not on cartridge. And the next data point that says that many consumers do feel like, yes, it is more valuable to have the game on the cartridge. You have this post from Nintendo, and it says, just like that, the top selling Switch 2 games on Amazon are all real physical releases, no game key cards. And you can go through and verify the Amazon.
Thank you, brother.
Yourself, but essentially, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Yuka Replayly, which shout out to them. They actually have their upcoming game at a $50 price point, no increased or inflated price, and it is an on-cartridge experience, not a game key card. Kirby Air Riders, Kirby in the Forgotten Land, plus Starcross World. A lot of first-party stuff, but also Story of Seasons, Grand Bazaar, Cyberpunk 2077, third-party games that are opting to do that on-cartridge experience are actually seeing better sales than those of games that are a game key card. And I do think that as more data like this continues to roll in, it will be very interesting to see how Nintendo responds to this. Now, in some cases, we have also seen where a developer or publisher will push on the extra cost of the cartridge to the consumer. And this might be another thing that happens in the interim until Nintendo either comes up with a different cartridge size, or maybe they backtrack the game key card a little bit and do some better options with lower size variants and cost options and things like that. But you have here this article over at Nintendo Soup, which says Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection physical release announced, and you actually have a price variance. So price at $49.99 on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and Xbox One, and the Switch. They're all $49.99. However, on Switch 2, you just have the game on a true cartridge. It is $59.99. So they are truly passing on that extra cost to the collector at that point. Same thing goes for the collector's edition. You have that $10 inflated retail on the Switch 2 version compared to any of the other console releases. That is definitely tied into the cost of a 64 gigabyte cartridge for the Nintendo Switch 2, because that's, again, the only option that Nintendo has given at this point in the generation for developers. Now, I am well aware that physical media, unfortunately, is slowly dying, but I do think that there's a chance that during this generation, if enough of these sales from third-party companies are unexplainably low when they are only released on a game key card for their physical option, and then you have this data from other companies that didn't get the game key card as their only option, and they did provide an on-cartridge experience, and their sales are unexplainably higher than what the other developers and publishers are reporting.
Good luck.
Money talks at the end of the day. There probably will be some kind of course correction here, and whether or not that be the publishers working with Nintendo to get multiple cartridge size variants in place for Nintendo Switch 2 soon, or as time goes on, the 64 gigabyte cartridge may be getting cheaper to manufacture, or Nintendo partnering to subsidize some of the cost of the 64 gigabyte cartridge. All of these are possibilities. You might consider them overly hopeful, and maybe we don't see any adjustment this generation, but I do not believe personally that developers will continue to go down a path that is not going to get them maximum profit if the drop-off in sales numbers is clearly correlated to that of a game key card. It may be a price threshold for the foreseeable future where a company like Sega, for example, we know that Sonic Racing Cross Worlds on the Switch 2 is actually getting an on-cartridge experience. Meanwhile, every other Sega published game, and that's a $70 game, mind you, but every other Sega published game so far has been a key card on the Switch 2, most of them coming in around a $50 or $60 price point. So is Sega's threshold just $70 for them to justify a physical cartridge, or is it something that they are starting to see the data and they chose to promote Sonic Racing Cross Worlds as an on-cartridge experience due to seeing the data out there that suggests there's better sales numbers there from physical collectors? All of this remains to be seen, but I did find it interesting with this new data that potentially the big game key card problem and all the controversy online, maybe the buyers are actually showing up or not showing up in a big enough way with their wallets to purchase these new games on key cards to kind of signal to these companies that key cards is not what we want this generation. So here's hoping we see Nintendo provide some additional options, maybe get us to a point where we're not only seeing key cards primarily from third-party developers. We have different size options available, and even worst case scenario, if we see games like Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection and they have a $10 higher price point on Switch 2, but that's the version that sells way better because it's on the cartridge, well, at the end of the day, I think that's a pretty big signal to Nintendo and these developers and publishers that it's more valuable than they think it is in the consumer's eyes to have all their data.
I was asking people today about the transgender shooter.
No, I want to know about the black questions that you be asking these girls about the black people. Ask me those questions. Whatever you want to ask, bro.
I mean, you know them. Which one?
Whatever you want to ask, bro. I ain't nobody to play with. Whatever you want to ask, bro. Because I met you now. I'm out here. You be out here trying to clown black people.
I don't clown
yes,
them.
No, you be trying. You know what you be doing, bro. You know what you be doing, bro.
Everyone.
I don't care what you, all that smart shit you trying to do. I don't care about none of that, bro. It's Big Gucci out here. Now ask me the same question.
Which one do you want?
Whatever you want to ask. Don't get scared. Ask the same question. Ask all the black girls. You the one doing the interview. You the one doing the interview, buddy.
The 13 one?
I'm not gonna run you up on you. I'm not gonna run up on you. Don't get scared. Ask the question.
Scared, bro.
You're scared, bro. Ask the question. Watch how you talk about black people, bro. And then when you say something about 13% too, you always say about that 13%. Oh, what 13% is? Yeah. Yeah,
oh,
we
crap.
13%, but that 13% is a percentage of that 13% though.
No, that's true.
But you're not doing it on your questions though. You're saying, oh, but it's 13 fish. No, it's not comedy, bro.
So
no, you're not about to clown my people on the internet and think it's sweet.
I clown everyone.
No, you're not clowning my people.
I clown
Freedom
everyone.
of speech, but you're not freedom of the shit that come behind it. So watch how you talk to people, because you're not gonna clown my people on the internet, bro.
I clown everyone.
You can say that on the internet right now, bro. But like I said, I'm telling you now, I'm gonna watch your videos again. I'm gonna catch you. I'm gonna see you again because you be in Fort Lauderdale.
On a cartridge when they pick it up. So we'll see what happens in the long haul for this generation, but let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. What do you make of the key card situation at this point in time? What do you think of Cyberpunk 2077's physical sales being at 75% of the total copies sold? And do you think that is a big indication that people were picking up that game as an option on the Switch 2 because it was entirely on the cartridge and they saw value in that? Or do you think that it's associated with something else in terms of buying patterns, and what would you make of that? Do you think that Nintendo fans, they do value physical media a lot more than maybe even the other platforms right now, and we might see Nintendo create some kind of solution for the high cost of a cartridge this generation? Or do you think it's going to really stay the same and largely most third-party games will remain as a key card in this Switch 2 generation we find ourselves in now? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Alright, well, this is F-Zero. I'll be doing Grand Prix. Grand Prix is going through all 3 leagues.
Thank you for calling Capital One.
My team's Gen AI tool helps you answer customer questions faster.
We use RAG with LLMs
and customize them with our data for better accuracy. That's how we SaaS.
That's technology at Capital One.
All right, I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first? The good news, great, good call. It's still a Pixel. The bad news, it is still a Pixel. See, the Pixel 10 has had some high hopes and some hype behind it for the past couple months, You know, it's the 10th generation. It could be special. The first one with a TSMC chip could be special. Some other things could be revamped alongside Android 16. Like, it was looking really promising to potentially reboot the whole Pixel thing, to finally have it really competing with flagships. Now, instead, it is very much all the things we liked and all the things we disliked about the Pixel already, but the competing with flagships part is coming in the form of a mainstream marketing push, a Jimmy Fallon presentation, a Jonas Brothers music video. I can't say I would have spent the money the exact same way if I was in charge of the Pixel program, but hey, that's why I'm the reviewer, and they're the
What's up, squad?
So, unlike the event, let's just focus on the phones. So this thing is very similar to last year in design, materials, and in character. Like the camera visor, the glossy glass back with the satin aluminum sides, and vice versa on the Pro phones. Even as an enthusiast about this stuff, you could probably show me a Pixel 9, and unless I know exactly which one was the new gray color, it could be easily mistaken for the new one.
How do you have another binge, man? I broke the binge.
The camera bar is nice for holding the phone. It gathers some dust.
It's trash, man.
Case on your phone. Great clicky buttons, great haptics. All of these things are still true about the Pixel. The bad news, though, is that the things that the Pixels of the past have been lacking, this one is still lacking. Pixels have never had the biggest numbers or the most bleeding-edge hardware. And these Pixel 10s are still Pixels, so they don't have super fast charging, they don't have a brand new massive silicon carbon battery, they don't have huge new camera sensors or record-breaking displays. My personal biggest annoyance with the Pixel 9 was the optical underscreen fingerprint reader was kind of slow. This Pixel 10 actually does have an ultrasonic fingerprint reader now, and it's faster than Pixel 9, but just a slight beat behind the other ultrasonic flagships now. But that counts as technically new. So hey, while we're at it, here's everything that's technically new with the Pixel 10s and my take on them. The main new thing is we get a full triple cameras on the base phone. And I'll get more into the quality of those cameras in a minute, so that is a nice inclusion. After that, it's a bunch of subtle things that sort of combine to make it feel a little more flagshipy, but without actually leapfrogging into ultra phone territory. So the fingerprint reader, like I said, is ultrasonic now and slightly faster, and the display that it's built into is a bit brighter too, so it looks better outdoors. The bezels didn't get thinner, but there's little grills now over the slightly better speakers at the bottom of the phone that are color matched to the metal now. Cool.
Was Letty. Letty was the next contestant to come in, and it keeps going for them.
Who were you flying out next?
I might stream with. I might actually go on a little trip with him as Letty. Letty was the next contestant to come in. She's still gonna come out, and then maybe me, Peggy, Addy, Letty, and Mike will do a little trip. Yeah. And it keeps going for them.
Who were you flying out?
If I was starting from scratch, I don't think I would stream. I think because the streaming is so saturated now, I think what I would do is I would just play offline and focus on YouTube Shorts. And then once you get some viewership on that, then you funnel all those viewers.
Look, we gotta fight, guys. Please let me smite his Void Waker, bro. Go Ferox. I want to rematch him, guys. Wrong guy. Good luck. Have a good stream, will do, man. You switched to Void Waker for AGS. Switch Void Waker for AGS, man. Sad, bro, sad. So close. Ha! Oh, good fight, brother.
And the physical SIM card tray is now completely gone. This phone in the US is eSIM only, which I don't like. eSIM support, great. Forcing me to use eSIM, not my favorite thing. Only the carriers win with this. And to be fair, maybe I'm over-indexing this just a little bit because I test a lot of phones. I move my physical SIM card really quickly between lots of phones. It takes like 10 seconds to switch and test something out real quick. So I don't like this at all, but yeah, eSIM only. The batteries are about 200 milliamp hours larger in these phones across the lineup. That's a nice win. But the internals that are going to make a real difference that people are actually going to care about are Tensor and Pixel Snap. So, all right, we got to talk about this new Tensor chip. Google phones for years have used off-the-shelf chips from Qualcomm, which made sense. They were great. And then the Pixel 6 was the first one to use their in-house designed Tensor chip instead. And the promise of Tensor was never really clear, but the idea was to give Google much more control over these chips and for optimizing for exactly what they want to get out of a Pixel. The thing is, the first Tensor chip wasn't that good. Actually, it was so weak that it had people considering if they should have even left Qualcomm in the first place. But, you know, we got to let them cook for a little bit, right? Let them develop this idea. And so a couple generations in, all of these first few Tensor chips were sort of co-designed with Google and Samsung, and it was heavily based off of an Exynos chip, and actually still fabricated by Samsung. So fast forward to today. The Pixel 10 is powered by a Tensor G5 chip, the first version of a totally Google-designed Tensor chip on a 3nm process and manufactured straight by TSMC, which seems like the perfect opportunity to make a huge leap in power, in efficiency, in achieving the original mission of doing their own Tensor chip. And it turns out it's good. It's a really good chip, but it's not magic. The main complaint that I and other Redditors would have about Tensor chips in the past was that they were simply not level power of CPU and GPU. And this is a $1,000 phone. Like, for this price, I could just get a Galaxy S25 Plus and have a Snapdragon 8 Elite, or an iPhone 16 with an A18. So this new Tensor G5 is more performant than before, but it's not miraculously jumping all the way to the level of the Snapdragon 8 Elites of the world, and I'm starting to think that's not even really one of its goals. Tensor G5 benchmarks like a mid-range phone. Like, the CPU is about 30% better than last generation, but is a solid amount still behind the Snapdragon chips in Samsung phones, and it's closer to like the 8S Gen 4, the one in the Nothing Phone 3. And the GPU gap, if my benchmarks are correct, are even bigger. For some reason, Geekbench 6 OpenGL scores are literally half of the Pixel 9s and a full like 600% behind the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Jesus. Its strongest area, though, is definitely the TPU, where this one is 60% more powerful than last generation, and that is intentional. This is the tensor processing unit that's specifically designed to accelerate machine learning and AI-related tasks like running on-device models. This is what Google has decided with these phones and these chips. They want them to be the fastest and most capable AI devices. So in the real world, performance-wise, this Pixel 10, it is a really smooth phone with everyday tasks. I've been flying around Android 16, multitasking, flying through apps. High refresh rate is always on. Not even really thinking about it too much. It's been very fluid. I will say, though, when I went in after a few days into display settings and flipped from high resolution to max resolution, things sharpened up a bit, but the phone also did get slightly, barely noticeably slower. Just a few dropped frames here and there, which I didn't expect. And I would also not be shocked at all if you did head-to-head comparisons with graphically intense games and frame rate measurements of the Pixel 10 fall far behind the higher, more powerful GPU chips. It also lacks hardware-accelerated ray tracing. But that's just not the big strength of this phone. Never has been. And it's still a Pixel, so I'm not expecting it ever will be. What I can say is at least the battery life for my use has been solid. It's been solid. I've been mostly testing the Pixel 10 Pro, not the XL, so even on a regular size phone, I'm getting all-day battery, near dead by the end of the day, but like 6 hours of screen on time and high brightness and all that, so it's been decently efficient. My main concern is now shifting to how well this phone will age, so maybe trying to come back to this in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, just to see how well this does compared to previous Pixels. But for now, the Tensor chip, it's not some miraculous savior that makes it an ultra flagship, but Good chip. Good chip. You know what's really good though? Pixel Snap. It sounds silly, but this has genuinely become one of my favorite new features about the Pixel 10s. It's just such a quality of life.
Good fight, brother.
As someone who is a card-carrying member of Team No Case. So these phones have Qi 2 wireless.
Good fight, brother.
But it's so incredibly convenient to just be able to slap the Pixel onto any of my existing MagSafe accessories, navigating with the phone in the dash in the morning, dropping the phone on a wireless charger on my desk where they automatically align, keeping it topped up on a long travel trip with my Ridge power bank. Even if you aren't someone with a bunch of existing MagSafe stuff sitting around, it just opens you up to this massive world of options for magnetic accessories for things you can attach to your phone or things you can attach your phone to. And I even think this is actually slightly stronger than MagSafe magnets on the iPhone, at least with the first-party Google accessories they've optimized, like with this Pixel Ring stand I got to try. Honestly, this was the perfect addition to this phone. It's like it was already a phone that didn't have very fast wireless charging, and so it still doesn't have very fast and a ton of functionality. Thumbs up. The two things that always make a pixel, though, well, that would be the cameras and the software. So I have good news and bad news again. Which do you want first? The good news. Classic. Yeah, the software is still awesome. These phones all ship with Android 16 out the box, all of the fun Material 3 expressive updates, the fun smart wallpaper cutout effects, the animations, the haptics, the notification jiggle physics, all this
Jiggle physics.
stuff. There's some weird stuff that's not all perfect. Like, I don't love how massive some of the buttons are getting. Like, okay, maybe the alarm app one makes sense. Fine, make those bigger. But the weather app, like this list of locations has such massive gaps now, so much dead white space between them. Or the phone app now too. They're making these buttons huge. This new Gmail app, these archive buttons are absolutely massive. And look at this stopwatch. Jesus. But, you know, for the most part, I'm loving how colorful and clean and fluid everything has been. And there's so many little things you can tweak and poke around and have fun with. Trust me, just watch a few YouTube tutorials on how to set up the perfect quick settings or have the ultimate all widgets home screen setup. It's awesome, super flexible. You're welcome. And then there's all the AI stuff on top as well, because, you know, Google. And there's a lot of this stuff that sort of just pops up as you start using this phone, and you can choose to engage with it or just kind of ignore it if you're not into it. But any one of these features could turn out to be that awesome thing that makes you want to stick with the Pixel, like call screening or now playing. And so the big new one on the Pixel 10s that's got its own section in the settings and everything is called Magic Queue. And this Magic Queue, it's a very Google thing that's supposed to take data from across your different apps and services and then surface them where you need them. At least that's what it's supposed to do. Now, I was using this phone and get it to work. Like, I was lobbing up perfect situations for it to kick in. And
all right, guys, I'll be